Now, this show has really been taken on board by its audience. I mean, the audience loves it. What do you think it is about the show that is grabbing viewers?
Gosh, I don't know. There's never really a great answer to that question. I'm just glad that the question's being asked because that means people are watching. I think it's probably a combination of things. I think every great show starts with great writing, and I think the writing on the show is extraordinary. And I think this is a character for everyone to relate to. You know, there's the familiarity of some of the storybook characters that people have known for most of their lives, and then within that, characters that they relate to, and then also just the idea that fairy tales are really about self-identity, and you may not see that at the surface, but sort of the underlying intention is that it's a search for self-identity, and I think that people respond to that. You know, I think that people feel that each week when they're watching the show, and people are intrigued by that and what that means and how they relate to that. So, I mean, that's just my guess, but yeah, I mean, we're just feeling very lucky and happy that people are liking it so much.
And it is a big show, isn't it, in sort of comparison to some other productions out there, when it comes down to the CGI, the special effects, the wardrobe department. What is it like being part of such a big machine? It's almost like it's a motion picture.
Yeah, it's like making a movie every 8-ish days. It's amazing. You know, it's intense because it moves at an incredible pace. I think for the actors, what keeps it sort of grounded for us is that there's such a big cast, you know, and it really is an incredibly sort of deep ensemble. So we're sort of always kind of like passing the baton to each other. You know, it's like there's a bunch of scenes with Emma, and then there's a bunch of scenes with Mary Margaret, and there's a bunch of scenes with Prince Charming. You know, so you're kind of like constantly moving from story to story and person to person, which I think keeps it more sort of, I don't know, in control for us as actors. I think it's hardest on the crew. You know, they've got to deal with immense amounts of CGI and green screen work, and Eduardo has to make these incredible pieces of art costumes every week. So I think that people that feel it the most really are the crew, because they've got to keep up at such a huge pace of just turning out sort of movie quality stuff.
How has your character evolved from the beginning of season 1 to where we are now? How do you feel she's evolved?
Yeah, Emma's evolved a lot. I mean, we've been joking that we need a scene with Emma crying in a bathtub going, it's just too much, it's just too much. Because really, it's only been 4 months since Emma came to Storybrooke. It's taken us this much time, you know, a year and a half to shoot that much, but the reality is that the time that's passed in Storybrooke since Emma stepped foot in Storybrooke is 4 months. That's not very long to discover that you have a 10-year-old that wants you back in their life, and that magic exists, and that your parents are fairy tale characters, and that your ex that you got pregnant with is actually, you know, also possibly involved in this world. So it's like she's had a lot of things went to fairy tale land for a while and had to battle giants and ogres and all sorts of crazy things. So she's been through a lot. I think emotionally, though, what's really developed for her is that she's letting people into her life for the first time, and so we're seeing her really experiencing love in various forms, you know, with her parents, with her child, with friends, and I don't think she's really ever had love in her life before, so you kind of get to see a very vulnerable side of her as she starts to understand how to incorporate that into her life. And
season 2 is sort of very family themed, isn't it? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, well, we're all related. I think now we're all officially related. Yeah, I think that, you know, we sort of started out with a percentage of that family theme in the first season, which was really about mothers and children, their mother and their child, a mother and a child. You know, Emma and Henry, and Snow and Emma, and then going back into fairy tale land, looking at the relationship between Regina and Mary Margaret when they were the Queen and Snow, and so I think it's just sort of opened up now to the whole family. So it's less just about the mother-child relationship and more about the inner workings of a whole incredibly dysfunctional family. Now,
you mentioned a bit ago about CGI and green screen, and there is a lot of that in this. How have you found that as an actor coming onto set and having to work? Is that a bit of a challenge, a bit more challenging?
You know, it just depends on the scene, and it depends on what's incorporated in the scene. I think there's times that, you know, you have to really stretch your imagination because all you have is tape on the floor, you know, green tape on a green floor, to sort of imagine the world that you're in. And oftentimes, though, that they have a significant amount of sort of props and pieces of furniture to sort of at least have a percentage of that world tangible to us, which definitely helps. I haven't particularly been freaked out by that stuff. I haven't had to do nearly as much as some of the other actors have on green screen. I have done more this year, but I'm a very kind of faith-oriented person in terms of like you just tell me something's there and I believe it. I don't really know why, and so for me, sometimes it's kind of fun to just let your imagination go and sort of think what it might all look like once it's all put on the screen.